Hi everybody, welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel and welcome back to another match preview. This week we're going to be taking a look towards the Sunday kickoff away at St Mary's where we will be playing Southampton. We're coming off a nice 4-0 win over Aston Villa. Confidence is going to be sky high, so I'm pretty certain this will be a nice little discussion. I'm Scott. I am your host, as always, for these. And this week, I'm joined by Iain, Daryl, and Joe. Iain, we'll come to you first, mate. Nice shirt. And how are you doing?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I have recovered. Probably about 90% recovered from COVID. Worst week of my life last week, so missed a couple of the previews, and then obviously wasn't available to do an extra time. But Saturday cushioned the blow very nicely. So yeah, I'm all good.
I bet it did. And it's still 10-4 in your household, as always. Daryl, are you dry yet from the Tottenham game, or are you still a bit damp in places?
Well, I got drenched again this afternoon taking the dog out for a walk when the heavy rain sweeps through the area. So, yeah, I'm fully dry from Tottenham anyway. But yeah, just getting over the gutting fact that I missed the lads travelling to London on the train over the weekend and on Monday. So we're getting there.
You've not mentioned that once in the group, Daryl.
Oh no, not at all.
No. Joe, good to have you back, mate. How are you this evening?
Thank you very much. Yeah, doing great. Cheers. Thanks for having me back on. And how are you? How are you tonight?
I cannot complain. Things are going well. I've got my new shirt on. It's looking good without the light shining on it. So yes, it's pretty decent. Not too bad. Before we get started, as always, every single week, the match previews are sponsored by Magpin. Magpin are the go-to site for high-quality, unofficial, enamel pin badges of Newcastle players, legends, retro kits, and they're also doing those awesome little postcards that you can get delivered. Like I said, I think it's Miggy month, so you'll get a few Miggy postcards if you sign up for those. They'll usually put on Twitter when they go up on sale because they kind of flash sale them. They're quite hard to get from what I understand. If you want more information on Magpin, their website is magpinbadges.bigcartel.com. So as I mentioned at the start of the show, fresh off that 4-0 victory at St James's Park, Newcastle will now be travelling down to St Mary's, where we play Southampton in a 2 p.m. Super Sunday kickoff. Southampton, they've been a bit hot and cold. They started quite well, and then it was almost like the postponed round of games threw them a little bit, and they've went on a bit of a bad run. Only 3 wins this season, 3 draws and 7 defeats. Minus 9 goal difference, 11-4 and 20 against. Daryl, what are your confidence levels and early thoughts going into the Southampton game?
Well, in terms of ourselves, I mean, confidence levels have got to really be sky high. You know, it's been a really good week, and a good few weeks in terms of performances, in terms of goals scored, in terms of the quality of the goals scored. You know, we've had to ride a couple of difficult periods during those games as well, particularly the first half on Saturday against Aston Villa. You know, the team came up and they just made it really difficult for us in that first half, and very much encouraged the game to be stop-start for that first half. And then, you know, we got that break at the end of the first half with a penalty, and then the second half was just an absolute tidal wave of attack from ourselves. But yeah, I mean, you know, I'm looking forward to the game. I think, to give you an early indication, I think we will take all 3 points. But we can all afford to look at this in terms of having a glass half or 3/4 full, even, such as the role that we're on at the minute.
Yeah, it's a nice position to be in, isn't it? It's. I can't remember the last time as a Newcastle fan you go into every single game and you think, yeah, we could probably get something from this. So actually, not even probably, we will get something from this. Iain, this is uncharted territory for Newcastle fans being so confident. If there was a defeat on the cards, and I'm not saying there will be, would that make everything come crashing down with a huge almighty bang, or do we just dust ourselves off and get on with it and look to the next one?
Yeah, I think it's very much a case of just dust yourselves down. We've only lost once this season. and that was quite contentious anyways. A couple of the draws that we've had arguably could have been wins if you look specifically at the Palace game, where the goal got ruled out. But it's I'm very similar to Daryl. It's a case of you're kind of going into each game now expecting at least a point. I think the lads touched on it. It might have been Monday, it might have been last Monday, where they were saying sort of you couldn't imagine a roll that we've been on. I think it's at the minute it's 8 unbeaten, and we went on a very similar run last season. Sort of after New Year, where I think it ended up 9. One of the games obviously was Southampton, with Aldi's version of Jurgen Klopp complaining about the signings being played. So to be honest, again, it's a ground that it's been very hitty missy for Newcastle. But I think you go down there full of confidence, and judging by sort of the stats and the performances and points that Southampton have had, you would expect to at least draw, but probably more or less bring home the 3 points.
Yeah, it'll be nice to see another nice performance, and hopefully we can spread it over 2 halves, which we seem to be kind of hot and cold for one half over another, and it hasn't done anything bad, but it'd be nice to see a full 90-minute performance or as close to it as we can get. So last season during our kind of run, we did beat Southampton. Bruno scoring that amazing back heel. Joe, more from the same from Bruno for you for this one, do you think?
Yeah, honestly, mate, I was at St. Mary's for that game, and honestly, it was absolute pandemonium when that goal went in. Because actually, it was funny from my angle. I didn't see what had happened. I just saw the ball go through a load of bodies, hit the back of the net, and then all of a sudden Bruno just going off, and it was absolutely incredible. Actually, last season I thought Southampton were very dangerous, and I would honestly think they did control a lot of the game. This time round, I think it's going to be the complete opposite. Southampton have only averaged something like 40% possession this season, and they've been very happy for other teams to have the ball. Obviously, that does help with our game plan. Obviously, we're used to, I think we're something like 4th or 5th in the league for like possession. It's something really high up, and that will obviously help with our game plan. I think what we just need to be wary of is that we don't leave too much space open at the back and give them the chance to counter. We saw against Arsenal, Southampton, they conceded, in the first half, but they did quite well. They did weather the storm, and then the second half they obviously came out and were a hell of a lot more dangerous. We just need to be careful that we, avoid the same trap that Arsenal fell in, and that we, we keep our concentration up for the 90 minutes. Like we just said, keep that over 2 halves. But I'm very confident going into it. Not quite as confident as the Villa game, but still quite confident that we'll get the win here.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Southampton do seem at the moment to be very hard to break down. It's a lot of either 1-0 defeats or 1-1 draws. I think the only team who scored higher than that is Man City, who, they score higher than that for everyone. Even us, they got 3 goals against us, but we managed to match them. They've got a few injuries, and 2 which really stand out in Livramento and Walker-Peters, who are their 2 right backs. So it looks like they're playing, I think he's a new signing, but there's a couple of youngins, I would say youngins, 22, 23, who are their right backs at the moment. Iain, is that an area of Southampton's game where we could look to exploit? And do you think maybe that's been their downturn in form after this postponed games?
Definitely, I was looking as well. I think Bella Ketchup or something like that.
Yeah,
probably nice.
Bella Ketchup.
Something like that. I think he's possibly, I don't know if he's been ruled out or it's touch and go, but him and Stuart Armstrong as well.
Yeah. Just
checked before I came on. They look to be possibly out. So I think with the threat, although it would have been ideal if it was their left back with Miggy being in such form, but I think any player that's playing for Newcastle at the minute is performing above and beyond what we would expect. I think Eddie Howe's got everyone singing from the same hymn sheet, and he can get a tune out of anyone. So it obviously helps when your opposition does have injuries and there's disruption to the back four. But I don't think it's gonna be a blowout like I've seen some people saying. I think it will be, again, quite a cagey game. I think they will make it very hard. Like you said, we're only conceding the odd goal, single goal. So I think it will be a case of trying to break them down, which I think nowadays, I mean, teams that would set up against us previously, and you would think like we've just got literally no idea of how to play football. Whereas I think now we're a little more sort of schooled in how to break teams down. So, but yeah, like you say, in terms of their defence, it always helps when they've got sort of key players, like you say, Kyle Walker-Peters and Livermore, the two sort of first choice right backs. Sort of hopefully only bodes well with getting a result.
Yeah, it'll be nice to see what Eddie Howe does, because obviously Joe Linton's suspended for this one, Daryl. He picked up his 5th yellow card, so he won't be playing on the left. Is it a case of we play Jacob Murphy there, or do you throw St. Maximum in for that side? We'll come to the full lineups a bit later on, but this position's quite a kind of an area I talk about with their injuries. Obviously, Murphy did very, very well when he came on against Villa. Probably one of our best players on the pitch once he came on. But then St. Maximum is also probably now should be back to full fitness, or at least starting fitness. What would you do?
Well, you're quite right, Scott. And the absence of Joe Linton is going to be it's probably the biggest concern I have going into the game, is how we deal with Joe Linton not being there in the team. But again, I think the inclusion of Joe Linton works better for Alan St. Maximin than it does for your Jacob Murphy. So without Joe Linton there, I think Eddie might be a little bit reluctant to just throw St. Maximin straight in there on Sunday. And I think he probably will pick Jacob Murphy ahead of him, just on the sole fact that he hasn't got Joe Linton there to cover St. Maximin defensively on that side of the pitch. It doesn't mean that we probably won't see him like we did against Aston Villa, and he might come on and make a cameo towards the end and just gear him up for the next week ahead, because we've got 2 big games again. We've got the League Cup game next week, and then we've got the Chelsea game before we break up for the World Cup. So I think he probably will pick Murphy to play on that left wing and maybe keep that same midfield.
Yeah, we'll get to like I say, the lineups a bit later on. Obviously, if St. Maxim does come on, we'll hopefully, for Mark's sake, he gets more than 4 minutes, because that was a talking point on Monday. I actually personally think he'll probably get a good 15-20 minute run out, and if the game's going against it or it's 0-0 and we just kind of break them down, he might even get longer. But I agree. I think he'll probably start with Jacob Murphy, just based on his performances of late. I know, Iain, you and I aren't the biggest Murphy fans. We've week on week talked him down on extra time. But it seems to be his turn to be getting the Eddie Howe treatment, and it seems to be paying him dividends. Joe, I'll come to you. Some of the players that are fit for Southampton, coming back to them just for a little bit before we move on to Newcastle. Obviously, we've got Shea Adams, who was their leading goal scorer of 5, who's always dangerous. Adam Armstrong, we all know about him and what he's capable of. And there's also a few others, Maitland-Niles, who's on loan from Arsenal, Ward Prowess, who is their, obviously, free kick specialist. And also a player who I think doesn't really have much of the limelight at Southampton, but Redmond is always a player. When I see him play, I always think he's decent. He's got something about him. Do any of those names, send a shiver down your spine, cause you any worry? Obviously, I would say Ward Prowess personally, but what about you, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, Ward Prowse is the obvious answer. You give that lad a dead ball anywhere in the 35 yards and you're always asking for trouble, aren't you? But it's a tough one, because I think what we've seen is that our defence, we tend to deal with a multitude of different kinds of strikers. And I know that Southampton like to play with 2 up front. And at least what I think what that does is it. If we manage to keep quite a high line, we could, isolate those strikers and, avoid, many chances getting created. Honestly, from what I've seen of Southampton, I was actually quite worried about Stuart Armstrong. But if he is out for this weekend, I think that's a massive blow for Southampton, because he seems to be one of the few players that can still grab the game by the scruff of the neck and create something out of nothing. Yeah, it's difficult. Looking at the past lineups from this season, they've kind of tended to go with the same sort of back four, but they have experimented a little bit with their strikers. Sometimes having one up front, sometimes having two, and I think. I don't know if it's just injuries, but maybe they just haven't quite found out what clicks yet. So I'm not overly worried about any one particular player outside of probably Ward-Prowse for the reasons I've stated. Yeah, I just think we'll be too good for them, to be honest. Like I say, Armstrong was the only one that I was overly worried about. But if he's out, great for us.
Yeah, I think on the site I used to check the injuries. He's a 50-50. Same with old Bella Ketchup, as Iain called him before. He's 50-50. I think Hasselhüttl said in the last preview before the last weekend that he's back in training and he could feature against Newcastle. So I think we probably won't see him start. Probably see him coming off the bench. Again, we don't know. We don't know how they're set up. We'll move on to Newcastle. We've already discussed, obviously, Joe Linton being suspended. Injury list hasn't really changed much apart from that. Carl Darlow seems to be back in training. He was in the photos that the Newcastle social media team released today. Obviously, we're not expecting him to then just come straight back in. I obviously think Nick Pope will keep his place. But one person who's no longer on that injury list is a one John Joe Shelvey. He got some more minutes at the weekend, and it was really good to see. He's looking really lean, as Decker keeps referring to. He seems to have really lost a bit of timber over the summer, and he's kept it off with the injury, which could have went two ways, one way or the other. With Joe Linton being out, Iain, does John Joe just slot straight into that centre of midfield, or do you keep your three of Willock, Longstaff, and Bruno?
I think if you look at it, and again, I always say this is why I'm not a Premier League football manager. You would look arguably Shelvey's probably better quality of midfielder than Longstaff. Maybe he's not Willock. I think Willock's got the legs to get up and down. I think he does a little bit of a different job. But the way Eddie Howe seems to play it is if you're performing, you keep your place. And I think, although I'm not a huge lover of Longstaff, I think he was very, very, I'd say maybe even below average type of midfielder. I think he's had a really good upturn in form. I think against Villa, I thought he was absolutely terrific. So I think in terms of how Eddie Howe set up, I genuinely, other than the Joe Linton, with him being suspended, I think he'll keep literally everything the same. So that would be the midfield of Bruno, Longstaff, and Willock. I do genuinely believe, even with Joe Linton and Bruno and Willock, basically, if everyone's fit, I do think we do look a little bit more balanced with Longstaff in the middle. So, and again, like I say, he's trying things that he wouldn't have necessarily tried or even attempted. Yeah, I think the sort of downside of him, he always does look slow on the ball, but I think he's got that little bit of extra confidence now. Obviously, he tried that 40, 50-yard attempt, try to catch, I think it was Martinez was in goal at the time, try to catch him out, but he was breaking up play very well. He was bringing other players in as well. So I think it would be harsh on anyone to drop out the side if it's not enforced. So, and again, like I say, I think the way how plays it is if you perform and you keep your place.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe it is still a bit too soon to expect John Joe to play either a full 90 minutes or even 70. So just like St. Maximin, we'll probably see him come on in the second half And again, probably only if it's an emergency. I know Eddie Howe said that in the past about John Joe bringing him back. He'll only be used if it's absolutely necessary, or kind of like against Villa, the game was already won and there wasn't much going on. So he thought, well, get some minutes in your legs and get you on the pitch. It doesn't seem to be going either way here. So we'll make a few changes. We'll come to the lineup now. Obviously, I think we're pretty much all in agreement that the only real change is the one that's being forced upon us, and that's Joe Linton for probably Murphy, like we've discussed with Daryl. I would also question on the left back situation because Dan Burn, although he's done very, very well, he was quite reliant on Joe Linton against Villa and against Spurs to give him that bit of extra cover when he was kind of either caught off the ball or he was caught upfield every now and again. Is it maybe time, Daryl, for a change at left back, and we'll give Targett his position back?
Again, it's down to the personnel available, and it's very, very hard to argue that you need to change that entire, like including Nick Pope in this. If you include it as a 5, it's very hard to argue a case that you need to make a change to that back 5, considering just how solid it's been like throughout the season. I think the inclusion of Targett would have hinged again on the availability of Joe Linton and St. Maximin, because much like your triangle of Trippier, Bruno and Miggy on the right-hand side, it's Targett, Joe Linton and St. Maximin on the other side. With, at the back end of last season, that was the key relationship in the team on that side of the pitch. So for me, it would be the same back 5. And again, because you would have, it's basically down to the relationship between those players on that side of the pitch. And Burn would complement Murphy quite well, and vice versa. And there's that little triangle there that's now forming with Joe Willock on that side of the midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not trying to say that Dan Burn has been bad in any sense of the imagination, but it's just, with the new personnel in front of him, maybe there'll be something else that can happen. We all know Jacob Murphy isn't the best at getting back and putting a tackle in. Oh, well, sorry, he can get back, but putting the tackle in, he always seems to kind of pull out or doesn't go for the challenge. Joe, what are your thoughts on that left side?
Consistency is absolutely key with Eddie Howe. I said it last week and I'll say it again this week. I think he's really developed a fantastic relationship with that back 5, hasn't he? And I think to disrupt it now for the sake of change, for change's sake, is not something. It would be very uncharacteristic of Eddie to do that, especially when you got the cup game coming up. No doubt, I think Targett will get his game in the cup, and we'll see more minutes for the likes of Saint and Shelby in the cup. I think that's a fantastic game to get them back up to speed before the World Cup comes around. But yeah, Dan Burn's done a fantastic job, absolutely fantastic job. And like you say, he's developing that relationship with the forwards as well. So no, I see him keeping his place, done nothing wrong. And like I say, he's Eddie Howe just wants to keep that consistency and keep that relationship going. So to disrupt it now, I just can't see any particular reason why he would do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just touching back on obviously John Joe Shelby for a minute, Iain. We used to really rely on his Hollywood passing and his ability to get the ball upfield. However, with Sven Botman and Fabian Schär in those 2 centre-back roles, do we need those passes anymore? I mean, the ball that Schär played for Joe Linton on Saturday was unworldly, and Botman just seems to be able to put the ball wherever he wants, no matter what pressure is on him. Even with a man coming up behind him pretty quickly, like was happening at the weekend, he wasn't even there, just played a lovely ball upfield and pinpoint accuracy, I think is the phrase I'll use for that one. So we might not miss John Joe for that side of it, but the 2 centre-backs seem to be filling that positioning quite nicely with their passing.
Yeah, obviously one of the things that Shelby sort of is known for is his passing. He almost, in terms of like American football, he would be like a quarterback. the ball would go to him. He would dictate where it would go. And I found that when Shelby was doing that, he was lying very deep in to do that. But having two really, really good passes of the ball in his centre halves just eradicates that completely. So it gives you almost an extra man. Obviously, I know it doesn't because he's still got 11 men, but it gives you that sort of extra man in midfield where you're not having to rely on your midfielder to dictate where the ball's going. So, yeah, the passing from your centre halves is absolute key. Spraying balls 40, 50 yards, even like you say, under pressure, they play very, very intricate passes as well. Very rarely get caught out. The only thing that I think, just touching on the back four, back five, and I again, this is just sort of speculation. I'm fairly certain Shaw is one yellow card away from a suspension as well. The only slight change that I think Hal might keep in mind is he'd probably want Shaw kept for Chelsea. So that may, again, I don't think it will. I think you'll probably keep the same back four, back five. But in terms of Shaw with a potential suspension coming up, although he would miss the League Cup game, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we'll cover that.
You know what it is? Just completely ignore what I was about to say, Scott. It does not matter. And this is why I'm not a Premier League football manager.
Yes.
Sorry, can I make a point as well on the long balls? We're not really that team anymore, are we? That relies on those long balls. Back when Shelby first came under Rafa, we were so reliant on the balls that he would produce to get us up the pitch because we were so obviously isolated in that midfield. Yeah, okay, we can still ping them, now and again, and we have the likes of Botman and Shaw to do that. But the control that we now have in midfield, especially in those tight positions, is unlike anything that we've seen in absolutely years. And it's good because, it gives us that luxury of sort of pinging those long balls when necessary, but we don't need to rely on them. With Shelby, though, I mean, what I do, him and Bruno are probably the two players in the entire squad that I trust completely with the ball, that they will do the right thing, especially in sort of like tight areas. So, Shelby does offer a lot when it goes to long balls, but his decision making, I think, is one of the best in the squad. So seeing him and Bruno together with that combination, I would really like to see that. I think we will see that later on in the season. But yeah, no, I just wanted to make that point that we're quite fortunate we don't need to rely on those anymore.
Yeah, and to go back to what Iain said, it doesn't necessarily give you an extra man, like you said, but it does give you an extra target to hit because you haven't got that defender playing the ball. You'll be further upfield. So where the long ball was maybe always the option, there's an extra man who's maybe 10, 15 yards away who you can short pass it to, which, is a win-win for everyone. We'll come on to our predictions. I'll come back to you, Iain, for your prediction first. And have you spoke to Joey? Does he have one for this week?
So I haven't spoken to him yet. He is he back at school this week? Yeah, he's back at school this week. I get him on Friday, so haven't got him. If you care, Sophie's give us her prediction in the absence of Joey's prediction. So she is going for a 3-1 win. She actually went 2-1 against Spurs, and I said, I genuinely think we'll get absolutely pumped. And she had a go at us because she's seen that in a dream, didn't put it on, and she would have won a little bit of money. But she's went 3-1. I'm going to go with a 2-0 win. I think we're just so defensively sound at the minute. Southampton aren't a team that score a lot of goals. I think we'll have too much and outclass them. Another 3 points and another clean sheet.
Was the 3-1 a dream as well? Because if it is and that one comes true as well, we might have to get her tested for
I'm gonna say no. I think it's just an inkling she has.
No worries. And I don't know if psychism is a word, but I couldn't think of the other word for it, so I just made it up on the spot. Daryl, mate, I'll come to you for your predictions, and I'll not make up any more words.
Well, like Joe, I was there last season. Had a very similar view for the goal as well with Bruno's back here. We didn't have a clue what would happen until we got back to the hotel and managed to see the highlights. But I'm actually going to go with the same scoreline as what we got down there last season. I just think, having seen that Southampton performance against Arsenal that we talked about before, they're just capable of pulling something out of the bag with one move. And, as solid as we are, you cannot help but wonder that if it'll only take one little play that they can pull together to get a goal. So I'll go with another 2-1, and I'm also going to bag Bruno to get another goal down at St Mary's.
Another back heel?
I wouldn't say no.
Imagine that.
Oh, imagine if he's got the same goal.
Wouldn't put it past him.
We've got Miggy doing it every week, and then Bruno doing it once a season. I mean, that'll take that. Like, absolutely.
I'll take that.
Joe, mate, your prediction?
Yeah. Well, I was originally thinking 2-0. I think we will keep another clean sheet. They've only scored like 11 goals this season, similar to Villa. And with the injuries that they've got, I just can't see them doing too much. Famous last words, I know. I said 2-0 last week, and I completely underestimated Wilson. So I'm going to go for 3-0, and Wilson is going to cement his place in the England setup by getting another gorgeous goal. So 3-0 Wilson. Not a hat-trick, although I would take that as well. But he's definitely going to get one.
Me too. My FPL would certainly take a Wilson hat-trick.
Oh,
I've got him in now.
I don't think we'll score many, but I again don't think Southampton will score any. I'm going to go for a 1-0 victory. I think it'll come relatively early, maybe it's half an hour mark, something like that, and then the second half is going to be horrible to watch from our side. But I think we'll be controlling the game. I don't think it'll be all Southampton. But yeah, I'll go for a 1-0. And I mean, how can you not back Miggy Almiron to score these days? So I'll go for Miggy Almiron, top left corner, as he's done, to make it number 7 for the goal of the season contender. Hopefully he can fill all 10 spots by the end of the season, and it'll just be the Miggy Almiron goal of the season. And forevermore, it'll be called the Miggy Almiron goal of the season. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'll go for a 1-0 victory. Awesome. Does anybody have anything they want to add before we wrap things up tonight?
We're absolutely mint.
Oh, we are late.
We are class. Like, the thing is, right, I think it's a weird stage in the season where we have done so well that I'm just so worried about getting cocky and overconfident, and then it's going to bite us in the arse. But you know what? If we can't do it now, then when can we? So, I think we just got to enjoy it.
When we're top, that's when we can do it.
At the end of the season.
Absolutely. If you do like this content, be sure to scroll down from this video and hit the little like button. It really helps get this into other Newcastle United fans' feeds, and it feeds that YouTube algorithm. And if you want to see more from us, you can hit the subscribe button, and we'll appear in your feed, as well as all the other videos that we release throughout the weeks. Also in your YouTube timeline. It's not a timeline. If you want to go that extra mile, we do have a membership program. It's $2.99 a month, and that gets you access to all these videos, early access, stuff like these previews, the FPL show. And if Matty gets a Beyond the Lines out, we'll also have one of those. But it also gives you access to the Telegram group, which on match days is an absolute hotbed to be in terms of people reviewing games, people posting the videos of the goals, everything like that. It all happens in there. So $2.99 a month gets you access to all of that. And you also get a chance to be in one of these videos. But that's it from us. We will see you in the next one. Thanks to Daryl. Thanks to Joe. Thanks to Iain. Hopefully we'll go into this on a 9th victory. And we'll see you next week for the Palace and the Chelsea previews. There'll be one early week and then one later on in the week for Chelsea. But hopefully we're also in the 4th round of the Carabao Cup after a victory at Palace. But we'll see you then, and there'll also be other videos throughout the week as well. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.
Cheers. Come on, Eddie House, top 4 marks. Get in there.
Come on.